happening is this. My name's Quinlan, and welcome to Melbourne Musos Live. I'm going to talk about a little thing that I love, the flow. Hello, flow. How you going? As I said, my name's Quinlan. Welcome to the show. I love making them every Friday. I used to call it Facechook Live, but it's still live, but I'm not calling it. It's just Melbourne Musos Live now. Why did I just say that? I would like to talk today about a thing called flow, a creative flow, you see. A lot of people I know suffer from a little bit of stage fright, get very nervous and all that. I remember when I first did the show, I got the go-ahead to make a show from Channel 31 way back in 1995. I need to lay down. And what it was the camera was in my face, and I was going, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Oh, I'll just talk to the camera like I do when I'm giving a student a lesson. And then I was off from there. I remember I was talking about getting around the drums, like. And it sort of went on from there. So I really just treated, for me, to get over my little bit of stage fright. I just thought, well, that's what I do. I teach. So there you go. Look at the cameras. There you go. Boot cam. And one of the great things about when you have to come up regularly and do a show. Last week I was talking about name that beat, that kind of thing. Do you want to phone a friend? You don't really have time for that when you've got to come up with 30 songs in 2 weeks. If you're a pinch hitter in a cover band, you've got to work out what the songs are, what the beats are, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot more going on than just, I think that's a twist. Is that for the verse? What are you going to do for the chorus? What's this? What's that fancy little fill-in that fits in with the guitar? No rehearsal, mate. No, let's go into it, So how do you get around that? You get on, like that. Well, I've got a couple of things I'd like to share with you. I've got 3 books here that I've ripped out of my little library. I've got this little book that I've had for a number of decades, The Confident Performer by Dr. David Roland. I have The Quotable Musician, From Bach to Tupac by Shelia E. Anderson. And one of my favourite books, I got recommended it by a visiting Canadian lecturer when I was a little bit involved with the Melbourne University in the mid-2000s. And this is a book called Flow by, have a look at that surname, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Boo! All about the flow state, as a whole chapter on musicians. But what happens is that when you're wanting to play and you're trying to work something out, you build up your skills. You wouldn't be asked to join a band if you didn't have, you passed the audition. And look at the T-shirt I've got on, Frank Zappa. And his auditions were grueling. He wanted groove, he wanted polyrhythmic playing, he was off the wall and totally improvisational. There's many a story where right before the band goes on stage, he says to the band, we're going to do everything in reggae tonight. That kind of stuff. People like Jack White go on without a set list. And Meg White is famous for saying, Jack, we've already done that one, Jack. Oh, sorry, Meg. That kind of thing. I love Jack White. So there you go. And what it is these books. I'm going to quote from them a little bit as I go through. But some of the things when you're in a flow state, okay? Each sound you have The plane. What it is look at that. Do things like that. And what happens then is when you get things like this, you set it up. What I do is when I warm up for the show and all that, just get the old joints working. It's getting a bit harder every day. And at my age, and then you set up some sounds. Today is the orchestral percussion. So if I just hit the rim. And turn things around. I could put Now if you're looking at boot cam, I've just put my right boot on a little bit of a trigger pedal there, and my left boot is doing the bass drum. It's usually the other way around, that kind of thing. But when I go back and do things like I don't know, unison. I was doing 5/3 polyrhythm. Now, when you're doing things like polyrhythms, you've got to, you do the common denominator method, So if I'm going to do 5/3, 5 3s are 15. Are you going to count to 15 really? You see, what happens is you sort of get the resolution point. So if you're doing, say, a triplet, 1 and 2. The weird sounds are deliberate. Okay, I just want to do something a little bit different. And put the backbeat, you can't lose it if you want a polyrhythm with me. That was stupid. There's 5. So you got this right-left thing. And then you start to get it. And then what happens then is as you get your chops out, and sometimes songs need chops, okay? If you're playing a fast something or other. Doing things in different ways, like splash hats, whatever it might be. Working with new sounds, give you new ideas when you're improvising, coming up with certain things. One of the things about Frank Zappa is that throughout the 80s he had the synclavier. I used to just call it, isn't it, synclavier? What it is. And there was a bit of a special on him at one stage, and he just used to love getting these weird sounds, a lot like Mike Patton, singer for Faith No More, but especially when you're talking about when he's playing with bands like Phantomas and stuff. He doesn't even use his voice in the conventional way, like like that. Foley. I love doing Foley for the other show, Impromptu, and all that stuff. This is a really crazy show tonight, but it's really about a common thing we all have as performers in any way, shape or form. Even if you have to stand up in class and, read, people get like that, nervous, that kind of thing. They're petrified. How do you beat it? Flow, do you see? So let me talk about the confident performer. The reason I pulled this book out, I hope it's still in print. I got it many years ago. I've got the 3 here, but this book actually talks about this book. So succinctly, I'll go to the book thing. The experience of flow. Once upon a time, there was flow. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi believes that the flow, there's a hell of a surname, believes that the flow experience is a distinct human experience and one that is similar across many activities. For example, the quality of the flow experience that a mountain climber might experience is similar to the flow experience of an actor, even though the activities are very different. The experience of the flow state can be achieved even in ordinary pursuits such as reading a book or chopping wood. And a person may not be in the flow state all the time, but may slip in and out of it. In studies around the world, Csikszentmihalyi and his researchers have found that people from very different cultures experience flow in similar ways. There you go. So that's a little part. I'm going to keep coming back to that. I will do number one. There's 9 points that I'll get through, but I'm not just going to keep on reading. I'm going to do something else. The activity is one that you find challenging and you perceive you have the skills to accomplish it successfully, even though it might stretch you to the limit of your abilities. The activity requires a degree of skill which has been learned. That's part one. And let's talk about that. What are the things you learn? Well, if I'm going to do drums, I've got to learn the single stroke roll. I have to learn the double stroke roll. You put them together and you get a paramadoodle. Right, left, right, left, right, left, left. And then you play them until the cows come home, till you get hopefully a little bit of a groove. Use the beloved metronome. Supernaut by Black Sabbath. I don't know why, but I have this loose theory that whatever you play, somewhere in the world there is a song that's related to what you're playing. As soon as I went there, I went Supernaut, Black Sabbath. But it could be like a one-winged dove. Ooh, Fleetwood Mac. Could be anything like that. I could start doing a splash hat, and all of a sudden, the snare drum, I've got the snares a little bit on the looser side, and with the trigger, that reminds me of the start to the film, was it Capone, isn't it? Or The Untouchables, I should say. With Sean Connery. Yeah, shmoney panny. Resolution point. Last week when I was doing Name That Beat, I actually made mention of one Steve Gadd while Paul Simon was up saying, this song's off of the Greaseland album and all that. And as soon as one song was finished, you'd see a Steve Gadd up the back, immediately just tapping his knee, and the whole band was locking into one Mr. Steve Gadd. That's a quote from last week's Name That Beat episode. And that gets the band into the flow, you know, that... Da 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 da. I don't wanna say that's split ends. And what goes on is that when you're trying to get things like as the building up the skills, the aforementioned single stroke roll, double stroke roll, paradiddle, that's a double there. What starts to happen is that you start to get a... One of the things I often say is that I love my practice pad. I always say it every second episode. But what happens is if you just continually playing the practice pad, that's fantastic. That's your base work. That's like a football player doing 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, whatever it might be. But what happens is that you're not seeing football players do sit-ups in the middle of a footy match. It's the sit-ups and the push-ups that get them onto the ground in the first place, to get selected. And hopefully they finish the last quarter. Da 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 da. And sorry, in joke. But what goes on is that you get your chops up, and then you apply the chops to your particular instrument, whether it be Doris the big ass drum kit, or your trumpet, or your saxophone, your guitar. You just work it up. And then what goes on is that if you are going to do a single stroke roll, move it around. Do the same thing with the feet. And now I'm mixing up the single stroke rolls and the double stroke rolls, and there's your paradiddle family, right? Bit of unison. I brought up Steve Gadd's Crazy Army the other week, and there's a little bit of a, pushy homage to the idea of a dialogue between the snare drum and the bass drum. Give yourself a skill. Now, I've been talking about the confident performer quoting flow. I got a quotable musician, and this is about flow. I'm just going to flick. Let's see, what have we got? Let me see. All right. I've always asked, what about being too old to rock and roll? Presumably lots of writers get better as they get older. So why shouldn't I? Lou Reed. There you go. Quotes. All musicians should get together on a certain day and get down on their knees to thank you. Miles Davis to Duke Ellington. There you go. There's another one that I read before that I will just sort of say is another Miles Davis quote in his raspy voice with lots of swear words in between. And what it was first I'll play it and then I'll tell you what it is with his improvisation. Miles, what are you going to do? Well, I'll play it first and then I'll tell you. There you go. All right. Here's one. Lately, I have been learning bluegrass tunes. It amazes me how good bluegrass players will improvise around the shape of a melody. The melodies stay within one scale, but they are so active. Trying to improvise and keep that intact is one of those mysteries that I don't think I'll solve in this life. Bill Frisell. Who knows him? Beautiful guitarist. There you go. So what we've got here is just quotes, from famous people. I just did quite a few. So what starts to happen is that when you're in the flow, got to swing, mate, swing. Oh, this is a very bombastic kind of jazz sound. A lot of people say leave the hi-hat for the band. Jack Dejonet. Paul Wade. What happens is that sometimes with flow, what goes on, you could be doing... What? What the hell? But if you're starting... It somehow makes sense because you've got a beat behind it. It's got a backbeat. You can't lose it if you want to dance with me. Be crazy, I told you so. And then the sounds create ideas for you, you see. So what happens if I could just do this? I'll start again, I made a bit of a blue. All of a sudden, It's like a buoy in the middle of the bay, you know. And then what happens then is that I just improvised that, but as soon as I got a mood, I thought, well, I'll follow it down a little bit and see what I can come up with and all that. Sometimes I give myself tasks in the sense that when I'm actually creating something for impromptu TV, which is much more spoken word, Billy Bob's Shakespeare Company, Hercules plays Hamlet. I liked making that one. It was funny. Oh, it was fun for me. Anyway, kept me out of the factory. Sorry. That's Ozzy Osbourne. Oh, I was going to have a big party for 6 months after I got sacked from Black Sabbath, and it was back to the factory for me, you know, that kind of thing. Anyways, moving right along. What about flow, Chris? Note to self. But what happens is when you're actually doing things, you can start using some kind of polyrhythmic idea and all that, or sometimes a polymetric idea. The aforementioned single stroke roll. And if I'm going to do 3, I'm just doing that. All of a sudden it creates something else, you see. And then I was sort of going... Oh! You're off. You're doing something a bit different. And then what happens is you've got 3 there, you've got 4 there, and you're starting to get into some of the techniques like minimalism with Steve Reich and Philip Glass, who I mentioned the other week too. I do like my continuity. I'm going to go back to Confident Performer and do a couple of more little bits because I'm getting there very quickly. All right. So number 2. I'll take my glasses off. Got to get a new prescription, Chris. Come on. Number 2, during the activity, there is a merging experience between you and the activity so that you lose the sense of yourself as being separate from the activity. Did you get that? Number 3, the activity has a definite goal or purpose, so you know what it is you want to achieve and you know when you have achieved it, like the aforementioned boy in the bay kind of thing. Ding! Number 4, during the course of the activity, you gain feedback about how you are progressing, so you are able to assess whether or not you are succeeding in achieving your goal. During the experience, there is a total concentration on the task, so you're not aware of other concerns. During the activity, your attention is narrow and focused on the present, not thinking too far ahead and not dwelling on the past. I better wrap the show up a little bit. Today's episode, or whatever, is about flow for the performer, you see. And I could talk about this for quite a bit, but what starts to happen is, at least for me, when I'm explaining what I'm doing, teaching what I'm doing to a student, or to you wonderful people out there in TV land, I have a bit of the famous drum teacher to the stars, Gary Chester thing happening, where your voice is the 5th limb. You've got 2 feet, 2 hands, a voice, and hopefully a brain that connects it all, you see. And you keep one eye on the time, that kind of stuff, which I'm doing right now. And with this is how you can, by taking certain steps, breathing, being able to breathe while you play, all this business. This is where you end up being exactly what the book says, a confident performer. By taking these steps, you chip away at getting rid of any kind of stage fright or nerves or whatever. One of the things you might even see me do, but one of the things when I am playing live in front of an audience, I don't hide behind the kit. I scan the room. I go, this is my place, this is my time, and I'm going to do the best I can do, okay? I'll just be the best I can be on that day. And then you do your preparation kind of thing. You don't want to walk in all hungover without practicing, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You set yourself up. You can either set yourself up to fail or you set yourself up to succeed. So with that, my name's Quinlan. Slow. And now for a nice glass of...
Can you get in? Got it. Good.